Alright, today's the last chapter in Access that we're going to lecture on. So go ahead and go to week 12. Only have one assignment once again, just like last week. This one has more questions in it. A lot of what we're going to go over is probably going to be a review, but there are some additional concepts that we'll learn. And you also learn why it is called a relational database. So go ahead and download your lecture file here, and you also need this logo, so save that somewhere as well. So open it, enable the content, and save it to your desktop. To save your image file, if you click on it, the image opens, just right click, save image as, and put it on the desktop. Alright, so this should be what your database looks like. You have 3 tables inside. And you have your logo ready to use. Got it open. First thing we're going to do is work in table view. So we'll use the customers table. Just double click it. It automatically opens. It opens in the table view there to show the data. Inside this view, you can change the field size and your caption just as you do in design view. So let's go to the state right here, and if you just click in state in the record right below it, then you notice that you have table tools at the top here. If you click in fields in the properties here, you can change the field size. That's the number of characters allowed. You can change the caption, so instead of it saying state/Providence, you could make it say, have a caption there, which would be easier to understand. So if we click name and caption, there's this name, which is the state/Providence. That's what the database itself uses. But you can put in a name here. So let's make the caption say state or so something like that would be easier for a user to understand. So you can change the captions right within your table view there. You can press OK, and then notice that it shows us state or province. We can also set a default value here. So if you look in the properties, something that says default value, so click there. And it brings up your expression builder. And for this, as far as we're gonna go in this class, you don't have to worry about building any of the expressions, but this is saying that what do you want that field to equal? So if we put a default value in there as South Carolina or SC, then what that means is as the records are created, if there is no state or province entered, it will automatically be South Carolina, or that's what the default value will be for that field. So if we press OK, notice it already places it in there for us. Go ahead and fill in your information here. You don't have to put the right address on. Gonna make you put numbers in there. Just notice once it creates a new record, South Carolina is automatically filled that. So that's what your default value is. You can save that table. Good. Questions on that? And some of this might be a review. So let's take this same table into design view. There's a bunch of ways to do it. I like to right click on this tab and go to design view, and it'll take you here. Also, if this table was closed, you can open it directly in design view by right clicking on it and just click design view, and it'll take it in here. So notice what we see here is all of our field names. We have the data type that's allowed in the field, and then there's a description for each one of them. What we're going to look at in this chapter is the properties section down here. So if we look, let's click whatever values, whatever's clicked up here, you'll have the properties for that field down here. So go ahead and click city, and notice that it changes. But all of these data types are short text, so a lot of this is going to remain the same. But take a look at what you have in the properties section. You can change the field size just like we did in the last view. There's a format. Go ahead and click there. And notice that you get an arrow. And there's several different types, so there's not too much for short text. If this was a different value, I'll show you in a minute. You have an input mask, which we're not going to get. This chapter does talk about the input mask, but we're not going to get into that here. There's a caption. If you wanted to add a caption to this field, just like we did in the previous view, you can type it down here. You can also set the default value right here in this view. A lot of times when you're editing these tables, you can go into design view and everything's right here, whereas on the table view you kind of have to click around a little bit more. But you'll have to look in your activity and see which view is asking you to change. Caption, there's a default value. You've got some validation rules in text. We're not going to get into that. Those are they're calculations that you can do to test values, to check to see if that is the correct value. For example, a social security number. If you wanted it to be 3 digits and then a dash and 2 digits and a dash, you can set up what's called an irregular expression, which you've probably seen those in math. Have you guys gotten that irregular expression in math? Not yet? That's what goes here, but we're not going to get into that in this class. But it'll check the values. If you filled out a form online and you're typing in your email address and left out a character, have you seen the error that says enter a valid email address? Everybody seen that? Yes. That's an idea of text validation. So you can do that within database. Here is a required. It means is the data, when you're filling out that table or adding a record to the table, is this field required? And it's a simple yes or no value. So if you click there, right now it's not required. You can change that to yes to make the data in that field required for someone filling out or adding a record to this field. And then there's what's called allow zero length, which means is the value, are you going to allow it to be empty or some kind of empty strings like spaces? If we're going to require it as a field, we need to tell it no zero length as well, because we're going to require some kind of data to be in there. So we don't want any empties at all. Index is for searching. If you would like this to be indexed, meaning the values and the data will be set in the computer's memory to allow for faster searches. You don't have to worry about that. And then the rest of that we don't have in this class. So this is all the properties for your values. Now let's scroll down to contact email, and notice this one has a different data type. It says hyperlink. Go ahead and click right there and look at what happens to your properties. Then, if we look at the format, we have to have a date. So let's put right up underneath phone number, let's type customer created. And then in the data type, let's make it a date and time. Okay. So now let's take a look. If we click in the format, now click the format button. We have the date and time here, which would be a generic date and time, but we can also set the format for that date. So we have general date, which just has the slashes and then the number was separated by a colon. Then you have a long date, which spells out the day and the month. Medium date has the day and the month and then the year, and so on and so forth. So let's change this to a long date there. And then that's how someone can type a date in there and it'll automatically format it to the day and the month for them. And then underneath customer created, let's type age. And we can change that to a number. This is how you create records in Design View. This is how you create fields in Design View. So we change that to number. Look at what we have a field size as long integer, and then let's look at the format. Click down in the format. There's several different. You can change it to a currency or a standard number. You can leave that on fixed. And then in the age, let's change the field size to blank, because it's just one character. The purpose of changing these field sizes and the data that's allowed in it, the characters, is the smaller text that you can allow in each field, the faster your database will run. Because it doesn't have to worry about keeping up with the extra space. If you can take it down to 2 characters and just tell it to only allow 1 byte of data inside the field, then your database will run faster when you get thousands and thousands of records displayed. Here. Any questions so far? All right, let's create our primary key. We already have one here. Primary key is, let's click in the customer ID and just uncheck that. Just to click the primary key. The purpose of the primary key, like I said before, Access is a relationship database. So you have all these different tables with different data in it, but you can connect it to each other or tell the database that there's a related field to where you can search and put these tables together. That's what we did in the queries. In order to do that, you have to have the primary key on each table. So this one, of course, is our customer ID. In order to make the primary key, just simply click on it and then click your primary key button there. You could also right-click on it and click primary key. Either way would create the primary key for the table. Once you create a new table, you have to have a primary key in order to relate it to other tables. All right, any questions there? Tell it yes here because we changed some of our text there. And even gives you a warning that if you don't change the database size, it might take a while for your tables to load. So let's go ahead and change the view to datasheet view. And we can scroll over and see our new fields that we added here. All right, we'll go ahead and close that table. All right, what we're going to do now is create relationships. To create relationships, you go to Database Tools, and then inside there's a Relationships group, and inside that there's a button that says Relationships. Go ahead and click on that, and it's going to show you relationships that already exist. In this case, we've got a customer table, and let's just make this a little larger. Anytime I see those scroll bars, try to make them larger. Notice that we have a line from our primary key customer ID to the matching field in the orders table. And then in this case, we have the product ID going down to the product ID table. So we can remove these relationships and create our own. So just go ahead and click on this, click on that line and press delete on the keyboard, and it'll remove the relationship between the database. So click yes, go ahead and delete this one, click there and press delete, and we say yes. And then we're going to go ahead and take these tables off so we can start over. So click here, press delete again, click on this table, delete, and then we can close the relationships here and say yes to save the changes. So then if we go back to Database Tools and Relationships, we have a blank screen. So this is what it looks like when you start creating your database. So we need to create a relationship, we need to add tables first. So if we look up here in the Relationships group, there's a button that says Show Table. So go ahead and click that. And it gives you the 3 tables in this list, which are the exact same 3 tables that we have in our database. So we're going to use the orders, so we can just double click, just like we're making a query, and then products. And then we close. And then let's switch these around. You can move the tables around once you put them there. Okay, we're going to make a one-to-many relationship between the products table and the orders table by product ID. Our main table is going to be product ID. The relationship table is going to be the orders table. So we're going to do it by product ID. So take the mouse and point to product ID and click and hold, and then just drag it over to the top of the product ID on the other orders table and click there. And the relationships box displays. This is telling me that which table I'm using. My table is coming from the product ID. This is going to be my main table. If for some reason this is different than you wanted, you could press the down arrow here and change to any one of the fields. The product ID is what we want. And then it says, this is my main table, this is my related table. And it's going to be coming from the orders, and we're going to relate the product ID to it. Then you have several options down here. And it tells you what type of relationship you just made, a one-to-many. Okay? I'll show you what that means. So click Create. And then there's your relationship. It's taking in this product, this is our primary key. We only have one product ID for this table. There can only be one product ID for each individual record. Whereas over here in the orders, you're going to have only one order ID, but you could have many of the same product IDs listed in these records. So that's what a one-to-many relationship means. It's coming from the product table, which has one ID of the same, nothing matches, and it's attaching the data to where we can search through the orders table to find several of the same IDs and pull the data. So it's one-to-many relationship. Okay. Is there any questions on creating the relationship table? Okay. You can also edit the relationship. If you hold the mouse over the black line there and double click, you get the relationships table pop up. When you create the relationship, you're going to want to add additional protections. For example, click here, click that checkbox which says enforce the integrity of our relationship. That means if a piece of data is trying to be deleted in one table and not the other, then this will stop it from being deleted. It'll let you know there's a relationship to another table. You can't delete that data without affecting the other table. So this will help protect your data. Then you have two options here. One, what happens if a piece of data is updated in one table that has a relationship to the other? You can either tell it to update the records, or you can tell it to delete the records that are associated with it. So we're going to check to make sure nothing's being changed. If it is being changed, what do we want to do with it? So in this case, we'll delete the related records that happen. Then we press OK. Then you can see where it has a number 1, meaning one product ID, and then it can be several different types. The same product ID could be listed several times in the orders. So one-to-many relationship. Any questions on relationships? All right, let's close that. We can save it. All right, we're going to make a form based on the orders table. I'm sure we've already done this one. So click on orders and go to create. And then in the forms group, click on form, and it'll automatically create our form. creates just about everything for us, but I don't like this image here. I want to change it, so just click right there and click and press delete on the keyboard. And we're going to put our new logo in next to the name orders. So click on orders right there. And I'll put an image to the left of the word orders. If you look, you have the format layout tools and design. There's a button that says logo. Go ahead and click there. And find that image that we downloaded to the desktop. And we can click OK, and it'll place our logo in our form for us. And then we can change the theme in the form, just like we changed the theme in the records and in the table. If we look over in the themes group, we're in our layout tools in the design tab. We have themes here. Just choose the ion theme there to change our theme. Good. Are there any questions? That is everything that we have for this chapter, for this week. So, I have your app, product. Yep, this week 12. Here's your assignment. Again, you have all these different tutorials you're welcome to take to learn more about it. But everything you need to know for this exam we just went over. You can take that. It is longer than the other one. I think it's about 15 questions. So it will take you a little bit longer. But you have today, the remainder of class today, and then Thursday, right?